Hey, what's up? It's your boy Greg Gray, Dope Living TV live. So let's get this started. Views that are expressed on this Dope Living TV live are not necessarily the views of Dope Living TV or its affiliates. Having said that, man, we're going to get a little serious today. Talk about domestic abuse, and question might be asked. If you don't know, everybody says the other term, but let's give it a layman's term. Domestic abuse. It's also called domestic violence. It can be defined as a pattern of behavior in any relationship that is used to gain or maintain power and control over an intimate partner. Now, the abuse could be physical, it could be sexual, it could be emotional, it could be economic, psychological. Any threats of actions that influence another person or scares another person, and it includes the behaviors that frighten, intimidate, terrorize, manipulate, hurt, humiliate, blame, injure, or wound somebody. All right. I don't know much about it, but hey, we're going to find out all about it. Let's bring our people on. Everybody say what's up to Marcella Amos.
Hi.
What's going on, Gina?
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Gina.
Yeah. Right off the bat, Carl Ramsey, he's watching, okay? What's going on, brother? Hey, man, you all check this guy out. I think on Fridays he plays some old school music, man. Fantastic guy. Y'all check him out. Support him. So we are talking about domestic violence. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And we want to make sure that we put a proper spin on it. So having said that, Marcella, introduce your guest.
Okay, my guest today is Mrs. Angelique Gray-Thompson. She is the CEO and founder of Promising Futures, Inc. And I want her just to come on and she can tell us a little bit about her organization.
Very good. I like her already because her name is Gray.
Like that. That's why I paused.
Let's do it. Let's welcome Angelique Gray-Thompson. How are you, Angelique?
Hi, Angel.
Hi, how are you?
Angelique.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's a blessing for you guys to have me on, and I appreciate it. So
it is a blessing to be in your presence and have you on the show. Thank you for coming on. All right.
Yes.
So we're going to get into it. What's up, Chris Lane?
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
He says, "Oh, I'm not the guest." Not at all. Anyway, he's a part of the show.
He's one of us.
Okay. I know. As Marcella was telling us, you have a compelling story as well as a compelling journey that you're going on right now. And if you don't mind, can you give us a backstory
Of Promising Futures and why you started?
okay.
Well,
Oh,
a backstory of you yourself. We just want to know about you first.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So y'all began as so I am a survivor of not just a domestic violence, but of also child abuse and neglect. So growing up, that was my norm. It became the physical and the verbal, emotional, and it was with my mom, my biological mom. And so that was the norm, right? Because if you get that kind of if that happens with your mother, then that's your norm. You kind of know that it's not right. That's not how you want it to be, but that's just how it was. So my goal, was like, yeah, I'm gonna go away to college, not so I get an education, but just so I can get out of that house. So when I graduated, I was able to leave. And my mother had unfortunately had several diagnoses, mental health diagnoses like schizophrenic, bipolar, anxiety, and several other different ones. And she was not on her meds. And so the state did not step in, honestly. I didn't know even about the state, right? That somebody could help. And with that being said, my goal was just to hurry up and get out the house, she was paranoid. So everybody was trying to kill her, everybody was trying to get her. So it was pretty much she wanted to get you before you got her. So whether we wake up to knives or, guns at the, head, that was, our norm. So she self-medicated because of not being able to treat her diagnosis. Most people self-medicate and such as like alcohol. So, but then you kind of like, okay, maybe I get a break because from what kind of drunk she was, it was like, okay, that's a little bit of break from the abuse part. She was a little bit happy at times, but then a little bit depressed to the point where she didn't want to even be bothered. So once I graduated, then I went away to school in Lafayette to college. And that's where my first encounter of domestic violence was. But, once again, that happened with mom. So it went from that person, the first person I was with, I was 17, away at school. And that lasted for like 5 years, domestic violence. And then it went on from that relationship. I finally got out of that one. So it was the verbal, everything, the physical, the sexual, everything. And unless you want me to give details, I can, but I know time-wise, and then
plenty of time for you.
Okay, I'm trying to rush. Okay, I was trying to rush, but so with that, once again, it was more of like, it's not healthy, but hey, he always told me, when I was at school, hey, you're only good for one thing. And after you keep on hearing, like, well, maybe it's true, I am only good for one thing. Wow. I'm 17, naive, not really knowing. And so with that being said, I'm like, he loves me because those who love me, they put their hand on you. So after a while, you kind of believe that because it happened with mom, right? And it didn't happen with her until, like I said, she started having mental health issues, like when I was in second grade. So with him, it's whether it was the sexual and the physical, whether I could be sleeping, he'll maybe get a belt and start hitting me in the middle of the night, whooping me with a belt in the middle of my sleep and saying the devil made him do it. With that controlling, I couldn't cut my hair. I had to stay. I used to do weigh-ins, so I could only stay under a certain weight. If I went over, I had to, lose weight. I could only wear boy clothes, so he would go shopping for me, and like I will wear clothes 2-3 times the size, bigger, and so everything was controlled. How I ate, where I went, and everything. Even from the sexual piece. So I won't go as detailed because it's probably a little graphic. But even with the sexual part also.
You must not know what show this is. We don't censor nobody.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't want to be disrespectful, but so even with that, he just would do certain things because he didn't appreciate me being, I could say maybe too close to virgin-like. So he would do different things that was like on a point of abuse, so that I wouldn't, so it wouldn't be like that. From there, I finally was able to get away, but not until I moved to Arizona. I quit school. Just one day, I called my parents when I was in New Mexico. I went from Lafayette to New Mexico because this person left, and I thought it would be a break to get away from him. But then it was like, instead of relief, I feel like it was a drug, Mm-hmm. And so when he graduated, I was like, yeah, he's away. So I'm still at school. But then he would come by unannounced. One time he called me out to the car, and then all of a sudden, they snatched me up. And so he kidnapped me. And so he made me stay at his house for so many days or whatever. And like literally, I was just going out to just see him out to the car. We went to Arizona together, and I know I'm skipping around. I apologize. We went to Arizona, but literally I called my parents and said, I'm in New Mexico. I left school, left everything, literally everything, my apartment, everything as is. And because he wanted me to be there, but I feel like I had to be there, even though I know he wasn't healthy for me and I didn't want it anymore, but I had to go. I had to go with them. So being there in Arizona, it wasn't much abuse. I was able to feel like I had clarity, but I just didn't know how to get away once again. It's like, it's not good for you, but how do you get away? So he then refused to work. He had graduated from Purdue. And so I didn't finish right with CPT, computer technology. And so he made me work 2 jobs, and I had to pay all the bills. So with the PERP, is either A, you're going to not allowed to work and you can't make your own money, or if you make your own money, you have to give them your money. And I was the one that, because I always used to work in 2-3 jobs, I had to give them everything I earned. And so he said he's not going to get a job until he gets his perfect job and still. So I paid for everything.
Okay, hold on, Angelique. I'm hearing your story, okay, but I got to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Marcy told me not to ask it, but I'm gonna ask it anyway.
Go ahead.
At what point do you say, I got to get the hell out? I mean, why did you stay?
That was my norm. Remember, it goes back to mom. So that's what mom did, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if mom made it okay, if mom, would sit there, put her hands on me, and she said she loves me, right? So she fed us, she clothed us. She was an awesome provider, worked 2-3 jobs. She had mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my norm. My norm was somebody that loved me to put their hands on me. So even though I didn't like it, that was my norm. I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
I didn't know any different. So people try to help at school. They try to help me away at school. And I'm just like, I used to make excuses. I used to come to work. I used to work at a bank. I won't name the bank, but it's a big bank. And I used to come with different bruises. I know how to hide it after a while. You just know how to do it. So I'm like 18, 19 years old, just knowing how to cover up. Right. People try to help me. I denied everything. I was like, I fail. Every kind of excuse you can think of. But he used to put it, after a while, he put it in places that are strategic. I have one mark I still have on my leg. Now, this happened when I was like 17 years old. The mark has never gone away. And it's still on my thigh, my left thigh. So I have a reminder of what happened. So honestly, and you're that young and naive, once again, you just think it's love. That's how love is.
I get it.
So, yep, I know. It sounds crazy, right?
Well, no, it doesn't sound crazy. It's just, because you never know what people are going through. But, it's just a question that I think a lot of people would ask, why would you stay in that? So as you're going through this, and...
Oh, but I'm sorry. It's another answer to that question. Not just that, not just only because that's my norm. It was backed up by certain things. So, yeah, it was my norm. But then he would say, if you do this, then so if you leave, I'm gonna hurt you. Now you could say that, right? But I've seen how he does. So even if you want to leave and you feel like it's a drug, like somebody got a hold of you, but you don't, and you might not know how, but also if you do, what will happen to me? Is he gonna hurt me again? How bad is it gonna be this time? So, and I know he will, right? Because he's done it before. He's hit me hard enough that I have a mark that lasted. Now, mind you, that was 17, and that's literally 30 years ago. And I still have the same mark on my leg.
Wow.
How did you get out of that relationship?
Yeah. So when I moved to Arizona, and I was working, and it didn't last long. When I moved and we moved in together, honestly, it's a good question. It was like, I feel like I had some strength. I think I felt at my lowest low, because at that point, that was my first time being homeless also. We had slept in cars and everything else. And I'm like, okay, this is just getting real bad. I'm not used to this. And then we finally got a place. I was still working, but it was like, I finally feel like the crazy part was, and I know it sounds crazy, I felt betrayed, because I'm like, is he cheating on me? Now, mind you, I'm paying all the bills. He's beating me. I still, mind you, remember, I still have to be under a certain weight. So I do weigh-ins. I do all that stuff. I can't wear makeup, which, I grew up, I couldn't wear makeup anyway. That's why I don't wear a lot anyway. But all of that stuff, and it was so much control. And I'm like, wow. And then I felt betrayed after. It's like, yeah, I found some calls, and he was cheating on me. And then I felt betrayed, even though I should have felt betrayed a long time ago, right? Hindsight. But so that was pretty much the straw that broke the camel's back, was that right there.
Angelique, were there any children involved in that relationship?
Not that one. No, I said not that one, because guess what? It's a vicious cycle. Mm-hmm. So then it's a total of 3 domestic violence relationship. The second one, it was back in 1998. And it was my son's oldest son's father. So with that one, yeah. Still, I was able with that one. It was more of not the financial, not too much financial control, but it was the verbal. He was mixed with black and Hispanic, but every 5 seconds I'm a nigger. So you gotta be, listen to that. Everything I'm a nigger this and nigger that. So you're like, what? The physical abuse. And he didn't do it till I moved from Gary to Indianapolis. And from then on, and I had a child with him, and he just changed. Well, I guess it's always there. You don't notice the signs. So the signs are always there, honestly, so you just got to pick up on it. But with him, it was, like I said, the control piece, and he was very physical and verbal. And that pretty much, that lasted for maybe a year. And the only, so with him, I would call the police. Now I did call the police, and I had a son involved. So when I called the police, though, what he'll do is run upstairs, take his shirt off, get a wire hanger. He will scratch himself up.
Oh, this dude here.
So the rules in Indiana, right? So whoever had the marks, so I had marks on me, right? But he did too now, because it was self-inflicted.
Man.
Too.
So yeah. So then when the police
No word against his word.
They're saying, well, we got to take you both down now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I'm like, but if so, what's going to happen to my child?
Right.
So I had to I felt like I had to live in it until this went on for a while, until it got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm calling because he's working first shift and I'm working like second shift. So I'm calling and my son is screaming. I'm like, why is he crying? Like, that's, mama knows the cry. Something's not right. So my son was just learning how to walk. He was like 10 months old. He was walking. He grabbed some juice. And when he grabbed the juice, he spilled some. His father got so mad, he said, you want juice? Here's your juice. And he threw a big old cup in his face. I'm telling you, I had to go because somebody was going to go to jail. I'm going to be honest. Now, my deal breaker was my child, because honestly, I'm not going to even say jail. Honestly,
Prison.
Yeah, I would be in prison because somebody was going to die, honestly. And that's what that right there is. When it comes to my child, there's no way. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and his more thing was more mental, like, if you leave, if you don't come back, then I'm gonna never be in his life again. Wow. And which I didn't go back, and he hasn't. I mean, my son is like about to be 23 now. He has not. He's even changed his middle name. His first name is now his middle name is now his first name, and his last name is his mother's maiden name. He changed names and everything. Yeah, I know some characters. I know characters, and so he hasn't. So honestly, that was that right there. So that was the deal breaker for that relationship. Questions on that one?
Yeah, were there certain men that you were attracted to? Were you attracted to those type of men?
I was attracted to. Okay, so I feel like this. So from a spiritual standpoint, I feel like the demon in him recognized something in me that saw, hey, this right here, like somebody said, it's on my forehead, sucker or one abuse. I just feel from a spiritual standpoint. But like if you notice, each one of them, just like the other one, like say college degree, this one right here was, college. So it's not like you had to be. I don't do like the street and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. It was like more of professional men, but that don't make a difference.
It doesn't.
They don't. So people could appear to be certain way. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. So mind you, with that relationship, I was like 23, 24, something like that. 23, 24. Uh-huh.
So let me ask you a question. Did you pick them or they pick you?
I mean, that's a good question, right? Because I really one could say that I felt that they chose me, but I don't know. I don't. That's a good question. How we met, it was all innocent. Like the first one was at a library, I was trying to study for an exam. The second one, we worked at the same, which I won't name places, but we worked at the same job, but different locations. So we were able to meet that way. And the second one, he cleaned when I left. He got so upset, he cleaned out my account.
Wow.
And I had nothing but the clothes literally on my back. And so when we left, we were homeless for some months. So I had to like literally ask, could I go sleep on different people's couches with my son? So
Okay, so look, you're a beautiful woman.
I appreciate it.
So it could not have. I mean, did he knock you down to the point of low self-esteem? Because I can't see it. You know, I don't get it.
Oh yeah. What self-esteem? Like there's like, I mean, honestly, low self-esteem. Definitely low self-esteem because you feel like you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you feel like you're not the right size, you're not smart enough. Because once again, I was called, no matter I went to school for this and this, I was still called you're stupid, you're nothing, you're only good for one thing. You know, it was that, and I didn't have a voice. I was always stifled. So I learned to, it's not even called submit. To me, it was like an unhealthy version of submit, like not the traditional when one submit one to another, like with husband and wife. Mm-hmm. It was more of the power control, and I'm the master, and you know, you're the slave kind of.
Were there any warning signs for both, for all? You said there were 3. Were there any warning signs at the beginning that you just kind of ignored? Like, okay, well, this one can't be the same as the others?
Well, everybody came from different backgrounds, still had that ground of education. But if I took I would say with the first one, I feel like I did not take the time to get to know him. You know, we didn't get a chance to like really, really date like we should. I would say the first 2. Now the third one I knew for 5 years before we dated. But for the first 2, like, I feel like we didn't take enough time to get to know each other to say, hey, like your characteristics, there's some weird characteristics coming out. It's like you was learning along the way.
But hey, regardless whether you took the time or not, there is no excuse in the world for a man to put his hands on a woman. And anybody who knows me knows that it just pisses me off when I hear stories like that. Okay, and it's also a good lesson and reminder to a lot of people who are listening that, you know, this stuff does not have to be the end of you, as you're a great example. All right, but I'm still tripping. I'm still tripping on.
Was there any stalking or drugging?
Okay, well, the third one, yeah. So, you know, as time go on, it just gets worse and worse. You know, it gets worse.
Lord, it's with the bass. Damn.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it gets worse. And if I try to rush through real quick, I apologize. Like I said, I'm trying to be aware of your time.
Dude, don't worry about the time. Hey, Angelique, you are a guest on our show. You take your time. You say whatever you have to say. Okay.
Okay, I appreciate you. So the third one, that was the worst, honestly. And with that one, I knew him for a few years, for around 5 years. And so we were friends first, thought we were friends first. And, he's always seemed to be charismatic and whatever, held down a job, of course, a little bit older than me, not much. And so with that one, when we got together, it just took it a whole new, when you say you think you know somebody, but you don't, he was literally a whole nother person, literally a whole nother person. And so who I thought I knew, I didn't know. I really didn't know him. So pretty much with him, it was more of the type that, and I was always cordial. We was friendly. Seemed like everything was just jiving so well. And so we then tried to have a relationship. And so with that relationship, we tried it. And, I didn't want it to be just, I didn't want sex involved because I was always easily convicted through all these relationships. I was always easily convicted because, mind you, I'm a PK. I'm a pastor's, pastor kid, right? Mm-hmm. Preacher's kid. So it's like, I'm gonna go to hell. I don't want to do this and that. And, but so with him, it was more of I think he knew how I was. It's like he took the time to study me. So he knew what I didn't like, what I liked, what I would go for. And it seemed like he was like, okay, so this one could be a keeper. So with him, it was more of, and I just kind of run down some stuff, So with him, we were in a relationship for quite a few years. And so he became more, started physical, right? It usually always start physical. It never just verbal, sorry. It never starts physical. Because think about it. If you go up to somebody that you barely know and just hit them, how are they going to react? Like,
back pretty quick.
Exactly. To somebody that you love, that says they love you, and proven to have your back, right? Not just says it, but they show signs that they got your back. So then now when they do it, you're like, okay, you're a little hesitant now to leave. You're hesitant to like, wow, okay. So it was more like that. And so with him, it started off with the verbal. So, and here we go. I'm being told again, you're only good for one thing. What? I'm like, so now I'm like, you know what? It got to be true. It got to be true. If everybody keep on telling me this, then that's all I'm good for. It's just that right there. So I'm only good for one thing. He knew my story, mind you, because and that's the thing. He knew my story because I did tell people. So with that, it started verbal and the downgrading and whatever. Then he started doing. Then after a while, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not this and that. Then it became with the disappearing act. So he would disappear. Later I found out why he disappeared, but at this moment I didn't know why. He would disappear weeks at a time, whatever. We weren't living together, but still, it's like, okay, we boyfriend and girlfriend. I think I talk to you once a day or once every couple of days, something. But it wasn't. He just started disappearing, and from then on, then it came to the point where we started getting, a little rough, just a little pushy. But I was like, yeah, no, we need to step away from this, because I feel like you. Oh, and then it came out that he was, it was some signs that he was lying and cheating. So I backed away. I backed off of him. I'm like, okay, so really, like, no, like it was more verbal than anything. I'm like, yeah, no, we're not going to do this. So when I backed away, and maybe some months later, or maybe a month later, I had just gone on a date. I didn't know he was in the parking lot watching me. I don't know how he knew where I was at when I was like nothing, but he was just stalking me, really. So when he was stalking me, and then when the person walked me to my door and left, he then knocked, and then eventually he busted in.
Dang.
When he busted in that night, he held me at gunpoint. So the whole night I had a gun in my back.
Okay, hold up.
Greg is boiling.
Yeah, because I'm hot. Number one, I want to know their names. But number two, let me ask you this, and if you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer. So you were in you said 3 times you were in the first relationship. Okay, this went sour due to domestic abuse. All right,
like 2 years. That lasted around a couple years.
Okay, then you got into another one. All right, you got free of that one. You got out of that one.
Yeah, that was like 5 years. Of the 5 years, 4 years was abusive, 4.5. Okay,
but you got out of one, and now you got into another relationship with a man, and said, "Well, hey, look, he guaranteed you he was different. He knows you struggle. He knows what you've been through. Guarantees everything's going to be good." And bam, it happens again. So then you get into the third one with somebody that you knew.
Yep, for 5 years.
You knew for 5 years, and bam, it happens again to a point where he puts a gun to your head. My question is, after the first, I don't know how much time came between the first and the second, or the second and the third. After the first one, did you not gain the strength to say, "Well, hey, I'm not going to let it happen again. I know the signs," or did was he just so good of a liar that you just said, "Okay, I'm open up my heart.
He would say that the last one is, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. You know, I don't have anybody but you. You know, I love you. I'm a fine guy. You know, so ultimately he got to the point where he had shown me a bullet on the floor where he tried to commit suicide. So it was like,
Did he really try to commit suicide? Did he really do it?
well, you know, but then he played on my emotions, right? I mean, and the crazy part is, like, I could tell you all this stuff, you know. It's not like I didn't know, like, oh my gosh, really? It's like you know someone is not healthy for you. You could say it's the fear. At the point where I was in those relationships, it was never the finances. Some females is finances, right? Some victims is finances. But it wasn't that for me, because I said I've always worked 2-3 jobs and went to school. That was my norm. So it was more of the fear of it. And I feel like it was like, I don't want to say, it was like you just, like, you didn't know how to get out of it. Like, you don't know how to let go.
At any time, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
At any time, did you think to call your family?
Okay.
Family.
Well, so my family, yeah, well, you know, I did not. You know, I know what to say, and I say I know it's wrong. So I'm not gonna say, yeah, I'm getting abused and like that. So a lot of people, those who are closest to me, and I lost some friendships because of it, honestly, because they were upset that I had stayed in those relationships. And it was like I just didn't know how to let go. The ones who did know, only because they have seen maybe some scars or they saw something that didn't look right. But I didn't tell. I didn't voluntarily tell anyone, you know. So no, one is embarrassing. Honestly, it's shame attached to it, and you know, and then yeah, mostly shame. Honestly, it's shame. So I would say with the third one was the worst. From that on, you would thought I would have left, right, Greg?
Hey, look.
I did it. I did it. It got worse from there. So I stepped from that moment on. I stepped away after he did that, and honestly, I was like, I was thinking, God, I was alive, right? Because the whole time he put one arm around me and said, I better not move, and he had a gun in my back with the other hand. So the whole time I didn't sleep that night, so I just barely moved because I didn't want the gun to go off. So after that happened, and he left, then it started changing till he started becoming more aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where he started, which I know that just seems aggressive, right? To the point where then now the sexual piece started coming involved. To the point where now it's more of, he didn't want like just sex. He wanted to rape me. So it was more of that piece right there. And so that's when that came into play. So the crazy part is it was physical. It was physical and some sexual. And in which honestly, with what kind of threw things off with us and made us kind of back away from each other the first time is I ended up being pregnant. And from that, but I ended up losing that child. From that, and it was so hard because it wasn't just like made out of love; it was made out of rape, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So from then I left, and I think I came back up here to Lake County, and I sit there try to get away from him. I sit there and was up there for some months. I got an apartment and everything, right? And so he ended up following me. Eventually, he ended up following me, and he appeared at my doorstep from Indianapolis to Lake County. He appeared at my doorstep. How he found me, I don't know. But he was able to. And so from then on, I was able to, then he convinced me. That's when he started convincing me when I found Jesus. You know, I won't do it again. You know, I love you. And then that's when I end up moving back to Indianapolis. He's like, you know what? We're going to get married. You know, we're going to live together and we're going to get married and everything else. So when I moved back, we moved back into a house together. Yes. Okay. Any questions, Greg? Because it seems like he wanted to say something.
No, this is really
It's hard to absorb.
a
You know.
sore subject for me because I was taught never, never, ever, ever to put your hands on a woman. Okay, whether you're mad, if you're mad, move. Leave. Okay, your life. And I wrote something today, and it's so funny because I write these things every day, and I wrote something today that kind of sets. It reminds me of this. Okay, your life doesn't mean that you get to become the wrong in everyone else's life or someone else's life. You gotta know that when you love someone, you protect them, and you protect them from not just other people, but sometimes you got to protect them from yourself as well. And I'm. It's not that I got questions; it's that I need directions to their houses. Okay, so I'm just saying, Angelique, I cannot see the story that you tell. I can't see it in your face right now. Now you're wearing a ring right now, correct?
I'm sorry.
Are you wearing a ring now? I thought I saw a ring.
Oh yeah, I'm married now. I waited till like I was like 38 because of all the trauma that happened to me. I waited to get married.
Okay.
Honestly. So the last one, which I would like her to wrap this one up because
Before you go on, Angelique, because I have a few. One thing I do want to say is, people on the outside looking in that haven't went through the experience that you and a lot of other men and women have went through with domestic violence, we don't understand how a person stays in the situation and don't just leave, especially someone who has the finances and it's not a financial
It's a mind
support that
thing.
they're looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Explain to us why it's so difficult for a person to leave a situation like that.
so honestly, it's like, and like Marcy, you just said it, the mind control is right. Like people with, even when it comes to like sex trafficking and stuff like that, that same concept of how they just stick into that, or how they stay with that person, or with the, when it comes with, say prostitutes, if the same mindset of it is mind control. So the more manipulative they are, the games they play, they know what to say, they know you, they can read you, and people just think that an abuser just looks like an abuser, right? They said they're all rough looking and everything. Well, those who know me, that's not what I go for. I don't go for that. I was more for, okay, where's the type, and got it together, clean, educated. And honestly, you can look normal all day long, but if your mind is not right. So a lot of these people have mental health issues. Each one of them had a story, even them, of being abused, right? Because when you become abused as a child, they always say, or child of witness, or even witness violence, grows up to be the perp or the victim. So me going through it, I ended up being the victim, but they became the perp.
What's a perp? Everyone don't know those terms.
Right? The perpetrator.
Thank you.
So they became the perpetrator. But unresolved issues. So if I kept in that situation as the victim, I would have then have turned, because after a while, a woman gets, or a victim gets tired of that situation, and then they could then turn and be the perpetrator. So yeah.
So anytime a man says, "I'm not going to do it again," that's one time too many.
Exactly, and more than likely they're going to do it again. That's the key phrase. I would never do it again. Is I'd never do it again. I found Jesus. Everybody done found God. I mean, that's just the norm. What to say honestly, and that's what they say. I love you, or then you play on the heart, because they know me. I'm very one of those sensitive, mushy types. I don't have nobody. You're only the person I have. Without you, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And so then you like, oh, okay, I don't want you to be alone. I don't want you to not have anybody. I always have your back, no matter what. Yeah. But except the second one. The second one, you play with my child, that was a deal breaker. Like, we're not going back to that situation. I mean, I'm being honest. That's certain things I don't do. And I don't play when it comes to my kids, no matter what. So
well, a lot of times they say that if he or she, as it happens in both male and female, if he or she hits you once, it's usually going to escalate.
Oh yeah.
You find that to be true?
Oh no, it is. It's going to escalate. So one, if it got to the point where he hits you, it's already the first time. It's too much because he had to have already broke you down mentally and emotionally
I'm not going to do it again.
For you to even allow that, for you to even allow that, and he hits you, it's like, wow. And if you right then at that moment, you take him back, that's it. Like it's not going to. He has to really have that moment where he get a lightning bolt almost literally strike on him for him to just stop doing that. Like because that's the norm. That's the norm. They're always going to say, "I'm not going to do it again." If he hits you once, he's going to hit you again, and it's going to get worse. But after a while, you're in it so long, you can read when they're about to do it. Where's the honeymoon phase? Oh, I love you. Might be shower, you kisses and everything. Then after that, you might feel a little temper, maybe a week later. I mean, it's like really a cycle. And then after that, then you start seeing the buildup of the frustration, and then ultimately the explosion, and then it just starts all over again.
So what eventually got you totally, away from everybody? Was it you realizing that, hey, you're the one that can take care of this no matter how much the law is involved, or a combination of the law and you saying, okay, I'm done?
Honestly, no law involved. No, the law didn't get involved like that because the rules in Indiana wasn't what it was now. Now it's the point where, with domestic violence and you have kids, you can lose your kids.
Yep.
So that's the difference. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, but back then, they came out all the time. And they remember him, the last one remember him from the other relationship where he was at the same house where he was getting abused. It's like
different woman.
Different woman, and they pulled me aside and told me, he was like, what?
Hey, get rid of this dude.
This dude.
That's the same. So that's where that came when I was saying, you think you know somebody, all those years you know him, and he was living a different life. He lived a different life, literally. To the point where I knew him for 5 years before I dated him, but everything was a lie. Him ever being married was a lie. Him having kids prior to that was a lie.
So he had kids and he was married before?
Yes, and he lied about all that. He even lied about his age.
Dang.
For 5 years.
Big old lie.
For 5 years.
Liar.
He even he lied about, everything you could think of, it was a lie. And he said he bought me all this stuff to find out it was the belongings of the last woman that lived there.
Damn.
Wow. Good grief. Woo. Okay. So when you finally decided to leave, what happened? How did you do it? What happened? Do you want to share?
So the last one, I kept on, it was physical. It kept on getting more and more physical to the point where I would hide. Like my kids never saw anything, never. So there was no witnesses. Wait till they're gone or they're asleep. And so one time I hid in I used to hid in my kids' room, like sleep with them because I didn't want to sleep with him. So he used to literally drag me out of the room by my ankles, drag me down the hall, and then he would rape me, and then he'll just walk off. To the point where after a while he'll just did we lose Greg?
Yeah, I think he checked out on us. He'll be back. He'll be back.
Did we lose him?
Yeah, it's too much for him. I came in late, so if I check out, I'm gonna do the same thing. That's gonna dip. Okay, I'm gonna leave my little circle up there.
I'm sorry.
He can still hear.
It's hard for a grown ass man to hear that shit. Just to be blunt.
No. Don't be sorry because people need to hear this.
Well, it gets worse. So I'm sorry. So to the point where sometimes he will once in a while make me some cocoa or whatever, and I'll drink it and he'll just start laughing. And he's like, you're getting tired, aren't you? He's like, yeah. He said, yeah, so I'll put something in your drink.
This nigga here.
I'm sorry.
You read my mind. I was going to say, knuckle.
Those who know me, I don't drink, I don't smoke. Just because I have family, I grew up with a family of alcoholics, so I didn't do it. To me, it didn't take much. Aspirin, I used to be off of aspirin. So I used to start having blackouts after that.
Wow.
He would put stuff in my food. Mind you,
You put some in food.
And mind you, let me just say, before I moved in with him, I used to drive around and he'll call me. He says, he'll tell me my conversations that I would have in the car. Like, how do you know what I said? He used to put listening devices in my car. So, yeah, I know.
That is deep.
Yeah.
This sounds like Gina. This sounds like you need to go ahead and get up with her. You need to write this up.
Yeah.
So that's a book. Yeah, I'm going to talk
to be a book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he used to put listening devices in my car, so he'll be able to tell me everything that I've said. I mean, just verbatim. So with this right here, I think after it came, honestly, when you ask like what happened, with the blackouts and everything, I started getting freaked out, like what's going on.
You got something wrong with you.
And I mean, honestly, and to the point where then, how weird that, when you lie, stuff just comes to you. I asked God for him to tell me who he was.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, he did. So then, like, all of a sudden, the neighbor that lived down the street who just moved in, coincidence, was his ex-wife and his child, who, once again, they came, it was like, hold on, does so-and-so live here? And I'm not going to say his name. So-and-so live here? He's like, that's my... No, I almost slipped. So here, he's like, wow, that's my father. And then the ex-wife came. I'm like, he said he's never been married before. So wow. So this child was like 20-some years old. Looked just like him. And then he finally, stuff started coming out that way. Then the girl, now you said when God reveals, he reveals. So then all of a sudden I got a girl coming to my door saying, yeah, my belongings are still here. What are you talking about? Your belongings still here? She started naming the stuff that she had. The ring on your finger, that was my ring. Oh, that was my engagement ring. And those clothes you wearing, those are my clothes. Ooh. She was able to tell me the stuff in the closet. So she was just saying anything. And I found out that the years that he was going ghost on me was the years that he had like 2 different families going on. Wow. Possibly 3, but we'll just say 2 right now. And to the point where, mind you, the only way then, if you try to have traditional sex with him, he wouldn't do that. He only liked to do it like off guard and rape style. That's it. And so I was like, you know what? To the point where I was getting tired of life. So you said, well, how did I was tired of living. Honestly, I'm like, this some baloney. Like I'm only sit there, evidently, maybe I'm only good for one thing. So it got to the point where my kids were gone and I took a bottle of pills and I went in the bathroom and I just sat there. He was there. I sat there and I just started saying like, why am I still here? Like, there's no reason why I'm still here. So honestly, I started like, literally, I felt God to start talking to me, but I was like, I didn't want to hear it then. I'm like, I just want the pain to end. And then from there, after that, I don't know, I guess God put my heart, don't do it. And he sit there and he made a comment like, because he knew what I was doing in there. And he was like, kind of like, yeah, you're a joke kind of thing. And then walked off while I was in the bathroom. And I was like, wow, he do not care if I live or die. And then from there, it's like, okay, like this man doesn't care about me. Now, did my father know a little bit about that? I mean, the bare minimum. Like the bare minimum. So with that right there, I want to leave. And I told my babysitter, my kid's babysitter, that I wanted to go. I said I had to go, but I don't know how to go because I feel like if I feel like my life is about to end soon, honestly. And I'm not gonna say I wasn't been too excited, but then the only reason why I wanted to keep on living was maybe because of my kids. That's the only reason why, honestly. And so when it got to that, pretty much it was like, okay. So he told me one day, he called me. He was like, look, no, matter of fact, he didn't even call me. He had left out. Before he left out, he said, look, he said, today is the day. Yeah, you're going to die. He said, oh, hold on. Before that, let me just say, I called the police each time. They came out. They told me who he was. He would get so mad, he would take furniture. He would start at the fireplace. And while the kids were sleeping, he would throw furniture in the fireplace. So I would call the police because I was scared that he was going to make some combustible and whatever. So the police knew what was going on. They said, look, we can't do nothing. You're allowing it, then oh well. You know, he set stuff up. So I then had no vehicle. He called some people to take my vehicle. So I'm in the snow with my kids walking while he had 2 or 3 vehicles. So I was like, okay, this is like, I didn't reach my all-time low pretty much, you know. So after all that, I was like, okay. And then it got to the point where I did run away. I did leave. That's right. I did leave and I went to a shelter. I stayed at that shelter for like 2 or 3 months. It was a domestic violence shelter, but he found me. It was supposed to be undisclosed. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, Greg. It's supposed to be undisclosed, but he found me. He followed me, you know, threatened me, whatever. And I went back. And then, yeah, I know it just, I wish I could say it gets better. And then like the rape still happening, the drug is still happening, everything is still going on, right? And then, so after that, guess what? I was like, no, I'm tired of this, because he started hitting me again. You know, it started getting worse and worse, right? So I left again, went back to the same shelter, right? Stayed there for a little, because the first time I stayed was Christmas time. That was the first time, it was Christmas. And so then when I went back to the shelter, I stayed probably, and my kids didn't know it was a shelter because it was set up like apartments, but with cameras and gates. And I mean, you know, we had to do group, and I had to do, I had to do like case management and group counseling. Mm-hmm. So, but the kids didn't know, like they didn't know what was going on. So I then stayed probably there, not as much, probably like a month and a half. And I left and went back again. And so I know the last time, and this was all bam, 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 bam. And then the last time he told me, he's like, look, he said, because I did honestly try to end my life a second time. But this time I came a little closer to doing it. And so he said, look, today, he said, today's the day you're going to die. And he said, because why? When I come back, I'm going to kill you. And how he said it, it was so, it went through my soul as if like, wow, like this is for real. My kid's going to find me like this and he's going to kill me. So I believe what he said, to the point where I made some phone calls. I had some people to slowly take some stuff out. And they were slowly taking stuff out anyway. And then one day I got my kids. So when he came home, I was gone. I got rid of my cell phone. I kind of went with kind of underground. So I knew what to do. The crazy part is when I was going through all this, that year I started the works of having what's called a domestic violence outreach. It's called Promising Future Safe Haven, because I knew I wanted to get out of it. I knew it wasn't healthy for me. I just didn't know how to, because then literally I feel like he was going to end my life. And from there, I had, when he came, he found out I was gone. So before I was able to get rid of my phone, he called him. He ended up coming to Lake County, but I stayed underground. And he was able to, I had a P.O. box. He was sending stuff to the P.O. box. He admitted everything he did in the letters. But, you know, once again, I won't do it. I promise we'll get married and everything else. But honestly, to that day, I have not looked back at all. And so, yeah. I know, finally, right?
No, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, since when you got out, did you get more counseling once you left? And what did you do as a result of all you went through all of these years? What did you decide to do as far as helping others?
Well, I was ready to address the domestic violence, but not the child abuse, honestly. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the domestic violence, because that was more, to me, that was like more deep rooted, and I still will suffer. You know, when you're adult, you know, you still the verbal part. So I had talked to my father, and I told him some of the stuff that was happening. Now, let's be honest, and I can't be honest and say my father doesn't know. No one knows 100% of the story. And you could say for many reasons why. I'm not saying, I'm holding it back for a tell-all book kind of stuff, because not once have I ever talked about doing a book or desire, even though sometimes I want to, But I'm like, woo, that's a whole lot. You know, it's a whole lot. But it was just, I don't know if it was the shame of it. It's some shame attached to some of still the stuff out loud. Because it's some stuff that's worse, honestly, that I haven't said. And it's still, I could be honest and say some stuff is like, wow. Like when you say it out loud, it's just not real. And I feel like I wasn't that person. And if I didn't know myself, I'm like, was I on drugs? Was I high? But I don't drink or smoke. So what was it? So I allowed so much. But I then got, wanted to build a closer relationship, with God. And that's what I did. And when I wanted to do a domestic violence outreach, right? The one I had, start working on. And so my father said, if you do, you have to wait till you're healed. Because if you work out of a place of hurt or bitterness, that will transfer to those who you're trying to help. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to be like the mad woman that sit there and now say, kill everybody or kill all men kind of stuff. No, I want to be able to actually be effective and help somebody in that situation. So it wasn't the counseling that now, I'll be honest. Sometimes I do feel that, and I've been told before that all the abuse that I suffered as a child, I should have got counseling for. And so every victim has a drug of choice, right? Everybody. If they tell you it's not true. Because self-medication, right? To deal with the pain you're going on, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, whether it's sex, whether it's mine was food. Honestly, that's how I dealt with it, by food. Because like I said, the other stuff I don't do, but it's still not healthy. How I do it. So,
we got a comment here. Tree says, how old were you kids at the time you were going through this horrible toxic relationship?
From birth till I got out of the relationship 2007 to 2007.
That was the last one?
That was the last one when it ended, was 2007. So my oldest one, was probably like 9 years old. So they were old enough to know what was going on. But once again, everything was done when no one was around or when they were asleep. And they didn't know until I started giving my testimony of some years ago. Honestly, and when I was giving it, I was thinking, my kids, now mind you, they're probably like in either junior high or something like that when I started giving it, or a little bit before junior high, I was giving it. And I'm not thinking like they're right there in the audience because I had an event for a safe haven. And I'm like, they're like, what? Okay. So, yeah.
This is an amazing story. Okay. We are talking with Angelique Gray-Thompson. The name of her organization is called Promising Futures, Inc. And she's located in Crown Point, Indiana. And she and I'm reading what we have here. Her services that are provided are domestic violence intervention, supervised visitation, father's engagement, parent education, truancy termination, mentoring, independent living skills, home-based casework, homemaker parent aid, etc. And when people have this many things, what do we call them? Jumpman.
That many jobs.
But you know what? Right. You know what though? It's amazing, and for you to be sitting here, it's a blessing.
That's God all day long.
All day
yes, you're very strong, sister.
Thank you.
Be able to,
I appreciate it, honestly. Thank you very much. But if you was to know like that with Promising Futures Inc., the reason why I did that and partner over the Department of Child Services is because of the child abuse and neglect. Honestly, I always tell people, if you want to know what I've been through, our beginning services, I wish that really somebody had stepped in and got involved with us. And then maybe we wouldn't be in a situation where we got, I can say, you have issues. Because to allow all that stuff to happen, there got to be something going on that you're allowing it, honestly.
So do you with your services, do you encourage women to leave? I mean, and also, even a better question is, do you have men coming to you that have been in situations like that?
Well, okay, so it's a little bit different because with us, majority of our services are with the Department of Child Services. The laws of Indiana has changed so that when they're called out, the police reacts differently now. So when the police are called out now, then if the children have witnessed violence, then honestly the state gets involved. So you are at risk of honestly having your kids taken away. So that being said, not too many men will admit because of the shame of being a man. So we've only had a few male clients through them. But then outside of them, there's been no males outside of the state. And the thing why I say that is because the difference is the state kind of, well, if they force, they co-order you do services. They co-order you do services. And the only reason why they might find out about the men is because maybe the children have witnessed and then told the state. So it's not the norm at all. But it does happen.
So let's say if I knew of someone that was being abused and I called the police and they came out and this person was afraid to admit, but the police saw bruises or blood or whatever, or they heard before they knocked on the door or something of that nature. And then say I was the victim and then the police came in and saw all of that. And I said, I don't want to press charges. What happens at that point?
Well, the state can take over and the prosecuting attorney can still press charges. Okay. They make sure they have enough evidence. So even because they know the victims will, I have honestly legal aid in Indianapolis probably hate me because I did the same thing. I went to go press charges and I'm like, I'll take it back. I did it a couple of times and they were just like, I'm just disgusted. So honestly, they were disgusted with me after that. So that's the norm, honestly, in this. So even if they don't, but I would say we never tell a woman, this is how you do it. So to say, oh, you gotta leave to do that. They're so used to people telling them what to do. You have to educate them. You have to listen. Don't pass judgment at all. If you pass judgment, I'm honestly, they're already gonna feel like that's what they're, that's what's happening to them already. So I when I talk to them, I tell them pretty much like there's life after this, the strength that they have, we can give them so many resources to help them because a lot of times it's the financial control or just power control in different aspects. Help working on their self-esteem. So our DV education is just not, our DV program is not just DV education. We work with case management, you do counseling, different various skills, parenting education. It's so many different skills you have to give them and support groups because it's deeper than just they don't know. They know. So so just DV education is not enough. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So the advice, let's say someone's in that predicament at this point, what is the first advice that you would give them if someone was in that and didn't know what to do?
Well, let them know that they're better than that. They're a strong person. They deserve so much better. So that's the first thing, because a lot of times you feel like you deserve it for whatever reason, whatever guilt, whatever shame, whatever low self-esteem you have. So first you have to tackle that, the mind first, and try to, to help give them so much. Yeah. Because they feel like they're nothing, and they're nothing without them. So that first, I would say that to tell them to leave, just give them options, what they can do. Let them know what they can do, how strong they are, and give them resources. But another thing a lot of people don't do is just listen. A lot of people just want to tell their story. You don't know how therapeutic it is to tell your story. Sometimes I couldn't, majority of times I couldn't, so I journaled. So I go back, I have all these journals of all this stuff, and I'm like, wow, they have to get it out. And it's so much harder when you have kids involved. When you have kids involved, you want to make sure not just you're safe, but your kids are safe. And so to know that it's a lot when you know that if you stay in a situation, you're endangering your life and your kids, and then they could be taken away from you.
Yeah.
So that's when people go to deep depression, honestly. They're battling a lot. They're battling, I'm going through this relationship that I really don't want to leave, but I'm being forced to leave, because no one will leave until they're ready. You have to be tired of being sick and tired. But now you're kind of being forced to when the state gets involved. Well, you have a choice, but then there are repercussions. So honestly, a woman would never leave, a victim would never leave until they're tired of being sick and tired. You can preach all day long, it does not matter.
Okay. Now, some of the resources you talked about were the support group, counseling. You mentioned like shelter, transitional home. Can you explain the difference between the shelters, transitional homes, the amount of time possibly?
Okay, so we have there's not a lot of shelters in Indiana. So we're part of Indiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence and also the Lake County Domestic Violence Task Force that was the sheriff department. So we try to come together and with different resources, with different agencies come together. It's not a lot of resources out there for domestic violence victims. And that all has to do with funding, federal funding. So a lot of funding is not out there for that. In each county, you might say there's a few shelters, right? Unfortunately for that. And now you're talking about not just domestic violence, you're talking about sexual assault and human trafficking is all involved too with this. So it's getting more intense. But it's not a lot of resources out there, honestly, for them at all. So, I mean, I wish there was, that would be helpful, honestly, Marcella, but there's nothing out there. I mean, and we try to help as much as we can, but honestly, I don't know.
So there's a big need of shelters and transitional homes.
And so with the shelter, the shelter, you might be I'm not gonna say everybody is different, but with a shelter, you might be able to stay like 90 days, something like that. You're not gonna, and you might be able to stay more than one time. So it's 90 days, but in the 90 days, if you have vices such as drugs, alcohol, you cannot, of course, you can't do any of your vices, so they'll drop you. They'll do drug tests on you. Also, you have to attend meetings, so support groups and everything else. And so with that, whether it be apartment style like I was in, or whether it be, and they have curfews and everything else, and you can only go to these places, for a certain amount of time. Like say if you want to go a job, you can't go out much. Or it could be like just set up as you think of a shelter, right? Or whether it be a big room or a few rooms with cots or whatever. It varies, honestly. Also, then with the transitional home, that's more, you can stay there longer. Transitional home is more like apartment style. You can stay up there to a couple of years, 1 to 2 years, and whether the shelter is more of, it's free because it's federally funded. The transitional home, they might go by your income, and so instead of paying like $700-800 a month, you might pay $50 or $100. Or if you pay $300, they might save a portion of it, so when you leave, you're able to then get some of that money back. So, and that's more of apartment style and more privacy, but you still have to work towards your goals, of getting healing.
Angelique, how do you listen to other women's stories and not have flashbacks or not carry that, into your day and all the way into the night? How do you do that?
Transfers? Honestly, it used to happen. Honestly, it did. It used to happen once upon a time. Honestly, you know how, and I can say this, for a while I avoided Indianapolis. I'm gonna be honest. I had to see clients in Indianapolis. I don't want to go to Indianapolis to see clients. Why? Because I might see them. But when you're there and you're helping your clients, you hear their story. In the beginning, I can say at some point when I thought I was healed, it started to, mess with my head a little bit. I'm like, wow. So now if I even tell my story, if I hear somebody else, if I ever tear up, it's more of, it's like I'm alive, like for real, like seriously, I'm more blessed. So I even had to stop myself now because it's like, even when I tell it, it's like, wow, like it's more tears of joy. So when people I could hear stories, and it's not as hard as it used to be because I'll be more helpful. So, how is it if I'm hearing something and I start breaking down and they breaking down and I'm not their support system? So, and me telling my story, the more I tell it, the stronger I get.
I was just going to say that's where the strength comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, that's an amazing story.
It is an amazing story. I mean,
and it's so many stories like that out there.
Exactly. And it is. It's a lot. They said Indiana is the second highest state for teen dating violence, and you guys don't know how many they start young. So you're thinking, oh, this just starts when they're adult. No, it starts in high school. It starts in junior high school. So you're going through it. Yes, it starts that young, and you think that it's not going on. They're not going to tell you. The kids are not going to tell you what's going on if you ever find out. Yeah.
What was his reason for drugging you? Was that to keep your mind in a certain state?
Control.
I don't even
trying to kill you.
I don't know what it was. That's the crazy part. He wouldn't tell me what it was, but I know this. Now I can just assume he because literally it will make me black out, just knock me out. I don't know, because he was still playing around. So maybe that was his way of slipping out and playing around and then coming back. I don't know. Because like I said, he never told me what it was. And honestly, I try not to let him mess with my head, because you could that could be something that could affect you years later, right? When you don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I've never even smoked THC, marijuana. So whatever he was doing was to the point where it was just, that was it. I don't remember anything after that. And then he just picture just that happening while somebody just laughing at you.
So I guess I do have a question. Even though, he drugged you, he put drugs and stuff on you and stuff like that, and you told the officers all this stuff, they still didn't do anything because they knew what he was doing?
I mean, they're like, you staying with him. He was with a woman like that.
The question is, now they have, if something like that's going on, somebody going downtown, somebody got to leave. You know what I mean? I guess back then they didn't have anything like that at all. I mean, they just left you in a situation.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. It wasn't taking that seriously. Now that's why we work with the Domestic Violence Task Force, which all that is all the local, is the sheriff department and all the area policemen, and that come together with all of the agencies, the outreaches and agencies, DV, sexual assault, human trafficking. They all come together to educate, really, honestly, the officers on domestic violence and how we could work together as a team. Because once again, I mean, it just, nothing used to be done about it. So,
wow.
Yeah. It's kind of like the same way they have to look at mental illness when the police are called out, and I'm kind of thinking that do the police feel that it's worthless to take the woman, try to get the woman out of the situation when they know she's going back?
I mean, it could be, because most times they go back. That's the majority. Like that's the norm. To not go back, that's rare. Even if they tell you they're not going back, yeah, that's not true. Yeah.
Well, when you say that most of them do go back, do you think it's because of a lot of them because of financial? Because the guy or the woman had financial control over them. So they're like, I don't have any money. Then there's a lack of the resources with the shelters. So it's like, we're going to either be homeless.
It's a lot. I mean, it's that, the financial control, because a lot of them aren't allowed to work. Majority of them aren't. Now, so not to me, it was in my case where they just, give them the money. Not only that, but if you have to think about also, a lot of times they'll use the kids. So my second one, he tried to use the kid. So not only he just said, okay, well, I'm not gonna see him again, but he said, if you do leave, I'm gonna kidnap him and take him to Puerto Rico. So and you'll never find him again. So yeah, like I said, believe me, I've had some interesting stuff. So with that, you thinking of your kids, do they say that they're gonna harm the pets? It's everything that they can use. They could pull out the bag. They use everything. The financial, you don't have any resources. Remember, all your friends and family, majority of times we're cut off from the family and friends, right?
Isolation.
So then now you feel like you're alone. And so it's like you don't have anybody. What resources do you have? And then also if you do A, B, and C, I'm going to do this to you. And I know you will, because normally they've proven themselves to be able to do something extreme to prove that they will hurt you bad. So,
do you think kids that, okay, I know you grew up in with child abuse and alcoholism, but kids that are a part of that witness domestic violence, do you think that affects them in the long run? What are some of the effects in the long run for children?
Oh, that witness it. Oh yeah. Well, mental health issues.
Do they become aggressive? Have you seen within your program where they become aggressive? They repeat the cycle.
It's one extreme and the other extreme. Honestly, majority of the males that I've seen, they will seem like they'll imitate their father or the honestly, because the father was the perpetrator. So they were the perpetrators. So they'll be more aggressive. They're just angry. I had one recently who try to attack me because that's what they witnessed, and they feel like, hey, they did it to their parent, they're gonna do it to me also. So honestly, that's just the nature. Unfortunately, it is. So yeah, do they grow with anger issues, with different diagnoses, mental health issues, try to find a way to numb the pain. I think this is trauma. And I always say with kids, I always tell people, a lot of times some people give kids a hard time, but as adults, how do we handle trauma? We don't handle when stuff happens traumatic in our life, we don't handle it well. So then in turn, how are children, how are they supposed to cope? If we as adults, right, can't cope, because the other stuff that they're doing is not really coping. When you're trying to use other ways to numb the pain, that's not coping. So now as kids, what do? So now you see them with, fights, depression. We've had kids cut because they just want to feel something. So cutters. So we, have kids that have, they take razor blades and they'll cut, there's different signs. We know how cutters look, but they hide them real well. It's different. Like it comes in so many different forms. And so with that, it's just honestly, like they're hurting. So, but then if it's not resolved, now you talk about adults, and now they're going to repeat that cycle as the perp or as the victim.
See, I've been real quiet. Okay. But, the information that you're giving is basically, it's really needed. I think there's a lot of people out there who are in denial. The guys who are abusers as well as the people who are taking the abuse, they're in denial. I was looking at a site called the United Nations, and they put a few signs here on how you can recognize the signs of a domestic abuser. And I'll read a couple of them here. Do they embarrass or make fun of you in front of your friends or family? Do they make you feel like you're unable to make decisions? Do they use intimidation or threats to gain compliance? Do they tell you that you're nothing without them? Do they call you several times a night or show up to make sure you're where you say that you're going to be? And then they say, do you, as the person who's receiving the abuse, do you sometimes feel scared of how your partner may behave? Do you believe that you can help your partner change if you change something about yourself? Do you try not to do anything that would cause conflict or make your partner angry? Do you always do what your partner wants you to do instead of what you want to do? Do you stay with your partner because you are afraid of what your partner would do if you broke up? I mean, do these sound familiar to you?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's that and so much more. Like it's hard, to have like a clear cut of what it is. And people, like I said, people just think it's just a sign coming. I'm an abuser. That's not how it is. They come suave. So and then from there, once they reel you in, it's like, and they're that loyalty. How some things that some women crave. You might crave attention, affection, loyalty. Be somebody safe, somebody just having your back. They have all that. All that is so much more. And then they can even be a provider. But then once again, they obtain that trust in you, you guys, you trust them. Then after that, then certain things that I don't say you blindsided with it. So yeah, some of those things, that you will be, then other stuff that you would just like, wow. And some things like when you say some things, I'm like, okay, I can relate to some of the stuff. I can. And some things that I thought you think that you would never do. How some things you would just never allow. Like, you're like, why would I even do? Like, that's me. But it's hard to say that, like, I would never do that. Yeah, okay. In the ideal world, I didn't think so either. even still, because my mama could do it, but no man could do it. Well, okay, well, we know that's not true. So once again, all the stuff I was yearning, they provided. All the stuff I was lacking, they gave me those voids.
Okay, so you're in a fulfilling relationship now. You're married, and how long have you been married?
For 8 years.
8 years of wedded bliss. So you've gone through through the trenches, and now for 8 years you've been happy with this guy. What made him the one?
Well, honestly, because I thought I was gonna be not the cat lady like Marcy, right? I thought I was gonna be the she has big cats. She has big cats. But I thought I was gonna be she's not the cat lady. She just have 2 big cats. I thought I was gonna be the ferret lady. Honestly, because I love ferrets, right?
Okay. You have ferrets?
Well, I did back then. So back in Arizona, right? Long story.
Dressed them in clothes and all.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. They're like my kids. They're like my kids. So, but honestly, yeah. So, but no, I mean, I didn't think I would, but that person, the one, is like, okay. I knew what I didn't want. I knew what I wasn't gonna stand for anymore, So it was just like, then I'm like, I'm 38 years old. Okay, will I ever get married? At first, it used to bother me, but I'm like, no, that's all right, So I had to get ready to the point where I was ready to allow love to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But how did you know it wasn't going to repeat itself? Like,
that's my question.
That's
how you know this isn't number 4.
Hello, I know, right? I mean, honestly, do you think you really know? Honestly, because it doesn't come like that in that package. Because it's still the same when people that have it together, whatever. But you take the time to get to know somebody. I like to say this: you can only fake the funk for so long. And then,
representative.
I'm gonna be honest.
But what if you had got into this and he faked the funk, and all of a sudden you found out? I mean, what if you had got? This would have been a 4-time. Thank God it didn't happen.
I was getting ready to say it ain't nothing but God. That's all that was.
That is God.
That's God.
I honestly, and as time went on, I pray that my relationship with God is getting closer and closer, and that I'm in the process of allowing God to work on me, even with the self-esteem piece.
Mm-hmm.
Because people say, "Oh, you might look like this, but that's not how I see myself, right?" So because of that, because of the past, so healing had to take place. Healing is still taking place, even when it comes. Like I said, I didn't even want to address the abuse, the child abuse. But honestly, what made me face it was my mother was diagnosed with cancer back in 2016, and it got to the point where I ended up being her caretaker. So we were like oil and water, but it was like. She was she had, then it was stage 3 cancer. And it was like lung cancer. And it was like, okay. But no matter what, I love my mother. So no matter what, I loved her no matter what. No matter what she did, that was still my mother. Right. But it got to the point where it's like she came to a place of being vulnerable. When somebody know that, or somebody saying, they telling me they crying to me, they don't want to die. And it's like, wow. And it's like, okay. So then that last year, she ended up living with me. And she was she changed to be honestly, I was like, wow, this is the mother I had all this time. And so she showed a different person. So her relationship with God got to me, I feel like more real, more closer. And before she passed away. But honestly, that right there had me kind of face the child abuse is like, wow, this is really it. And then after she passed away, honestly, I know this sounds crazy, but when she passed away, February 2017, how I got full closure, honestly, a couple months ago, I finally cleaned her house out. It took me that long, a couple months ago. And I'm like, so I'm just getting rid of stuff like, wow. And it's like breakthrough, like, wow. Because it felt final. Not like I just didn't visit her, right? She's thinking I'm following her or stealing stuff or whatever because she was paranoid schizophrenic. So I was always doing something, right? So it was like, it wasn't like, okay, I just didn't visit her anymore. It was like, no, this is it. She's gone forever. And it was like, wow. So that brought me a whole lot of closure to like, I forgive you. I forgive you for everything that you've done. You know, whether you feel like you were sorry or not, I had to do it for myself, but I loved her. So that helped me address that piece right there.
And that can be a key to healing. You know, forgiving others that have done bad to you. Once you absolve yourself of having all of that pain, all of that burden, and you let it go, it's a beautiful thing. And this I do know. Man, you know, you can't tell me his name now, all of them if you like.
No, I can't.
Mister.
But I will say this. I do want to let your callers know, be careful if you're in that situation, because I will say this. You know how you think everything is 50,000 years later? That was back in 2007. Well, now 2021. So, yeah, I started like the past couple months ago, I started getting calls on my phone. I changed phones, different last name and everything. But now they were calling asking for him. Like, why are you calling my husband's phone and my phone asking for him? So we was thinking that was him trying to give.
Wow.
Yeah. I said, you know what? This is ridiculous. And then if you owe, I said with your callers, if you owe a bill, because I did from once upon a time. And honestly, this just happened like last week. Seriously. I'm like, okay, what's really going on? But honestly, they had in turn made a mistake and sent my address where I live now to where he lived.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? I've been going underground all these years. And you guys, so I had to talk to them. And I'm like, how did you guys make that mistake? So be careful. They said, well, we didn't know. I know you didn't know that was in that relationship, but they wanted me to appear in court for this bill. I said, I'm not going to court for this date and time at this in Indianapolis. He knows now. I said, so you want to go there and be a sitting duck? I said, I won't. I said, you guys have to understand when you're trying to look for people and you make a mistake such as that, you send my information to his address, my
That's
new
life or death.
I said, honestly, so I pray that they take my heed and will come back, but be careful even when it comes down. When you go underground, make sure you cover all those bases of people that you owe to let them know that you are in hiding and to watch how they give out your information. So I will say that I learned that the hard way.
Well, here's something that you could, well, first, I gotta say this, okay? Hydrate yourselves, everybody. Drink this core water. It's perfectly balanced, pH pure.
Cold word of the day.
The bottle is made from 100% recycled plastic. They are doing their part for the environment. It's made from 100% recycled plastic. And when it recycles itself and it comes back, it can come back as a sheave so that you can stick these digits, all right?
A shank.
Who said a shank?
Sheave. So you can stick them. You can pour some cold water on them, let it recycle itself, and then stick them.
It'll be nice and clean. The wound will be clean.
Nice and clean.
What you say?
The wound will be clean.
I know this is
Angelique.
So
I got a question.
We all got questions about that.
All right. I've been listening, and you just had made mention that your mother was paranoid, schizophrenic. Was that at the end of her life, or was that while you were growing up?
No, that was since I was that's why the abuse started. So that's when I was like in second grade. She had a nervous breakdown. So she worked like she was working so many jobs. Like I worked 3-4 jobs. I got it from her. So she worked like so many jobs trying to provide, and she had a breakdown. When she had that nervous breakdown, that was it. And with that, one of her many diagnoses. That was one of her many diagnoses. So, yeah.
So that was a part of the abuse that came from your mother?
Oh, yeah. That was, from second grade on to when I graduated, second grade to 12th grade. So that's why I went to school. I'm being honest. Yeah, I had goals in mind, but I was counting down. And, so, yeah, just counting down to get out that household.
Are you a PK?
Yeah, she's PK.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So as you went through this, and you gained the strength, because you're superwoman to me right now.
Oh, I appreciate it. I don't know.
How can you impart to other people. I think I've asked this question, but I really want you to dig into this. Impart to other people to know the signs and to continue to go on, to move on, to get out of that stuff. I can what and Marcy asked the question, and you gave a little bit, but I need you to give some sage advice. Drop a gem. Tell these people what do they need to do in order to avoid or to get out of the same situation that you were in.
Okay, so one, talk to someone that you feel safe. I always tell you, you have to get it out. If you keep it bottle inside, it will mess with you, honestly, and you'll get different vices. But make sure someone's safe. So if you don't want to talk to like a therapist or whatever, which is nothing wrong, there is a stigma on going to a counselor or a therapist. There's nothing wrong with going to a counselor or therapist. Like, honestly, so I am big on that. Like I said, I know I needed to do that. But not just that, but also we don't say it, but the goal was to leave. So with myself, how I left the last time or in the 50th time, I start stashing money. So I would slowly stash money away. So I was like, I know I want to leave. So whether it's however much, I was stashing money, and he would never know. So I was stashing money so I could so I couldn't say it was that financial piece. So when I leave, I don't feel like I have to come back because of whatever. Yeah, I still was working jobs, but it didn't matter still. I didn't want that to be an excuse. And make sure you have a safety plan. So we have what's called a safety plan. So like in case of emergency, what would you do? Where would you go? Your kids, maybe even like say, slowly, with me, I slowly try to move out so it wasn't as noticeable, or at least have like a few bags of clothes for me and my kids, and had them in the trunk or something like that. So make sure that if you go, don't reveal your hand. Don't reveal your hand that you're going to go, because it can get deadly. It can get very dangerous. But honestly, to stay in that situation can be life or death for you and your kids, honestly.
Yep, there you go. Final word, Marcella.
I just want to thank you, Angel. You have been an angel to many people, just telling your story within your organization, helping with domestic violence education, and just being there. I actually had the pleasure of being with you once on a home visit. And like, she has said, it's hard to get out. I didn't see the signs of this person, but after we got in the car, she told me she's going right back. And I know it's hard. There's also a national domestic violence hotline. A lot of times they're in bathrooms at hospitals, different things like that. Tell someone, if someone come to you that's being abused, don't be judgmental. Like Angel said, listen. Be a listening ear. If they ask, tell them about different resources, love on them while they're in the relationship, and be there for them once they get out of the relationship. Don't just think, hey, they're now out of this relationship, they're good, they're not good.
Nope.
Be there, be there, be there.
Okay, Gina.
I just want to thank you for sharing your story. I mean, it touched me very, very deeply. And, the strength that you have to come out of it, the situation could have been so totally different. Mm-hmm. Your children are left behind to have to pick up the pieces and move on with their lives. God saw fit for you to continue on with your life for a reason. Mm-hmm. And I think that you're living out that reason that he put on you to be here. So thank you so much.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Maurice?
Well, you can probably see I'm kind of in awe because I'm usually running my mouth through everything. I always get jumped on by running my mouth so much, but I'm telling you, sis, this is the strongest thing I done heard on this show in a minute. And you keep doing your thing. Keep doing it.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. And Angelique, I'm going to let you have the final word.
He said, "Oh, let me have the final word." Oh,
Yeah, you can have a final word.
Mhm.
I appreciate you. And it's a blessing for you guys to have me on.
Oh, you're the best.
Oh, thank you. Like with Marcella, just piggyback. Don't be judgmental. There could be people that's going through right now, and you have to, honestly, if let them feel safe in telling you what's going on, because if not, it might be too late, or when they're tired of being sick and tired, it might be too late. So just please, just be patient and just be understanding in it. And even when it starts young too. So also watch your children too, or your grandchildren, to make sure and just look for the signs what they're going through too. Okay, not just, oh, that's a kid being a kid, whether it's a male or a female. So the signs are always there. And watch now also for the sexual assault and human trafficking too, because that goes hand in hand a lot too.
Mm.
And as she said, if you recognize that you're mistreating your partner, there's a lot of resources that you can get to before it gets bad. Okay, you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That number is 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. Call. I mean, because sometimes you may feel that you got this pent up anger and this and that, and you take it out on the person, it becomes abusive. Stop it before it happens. Okay, Angelique Gray-Thompson, we want to thank you for coming on the show. This is DopelivenTV Live. Okay, we had a very informative show, and thank you.
Thank you, sis.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Many blessings, you guys. Take care.
Same for you. This is DopelivenTV Live, y'all. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.
Bye.